like yours in over 100 countries. So yeah, so it's been a fun experience. And now I'm based in New York. I moved back to the US 3 years ago after I'd been abroad for 7 years in Singapore and London. So it's nice to be back. I love New York. It's a great city.
Awesome. I guess I'm next. I am Kyle Paul. I am the North America regional lead for the developer ecosystems team with Erica and Melissa. And so what I do at Google is I look after the DSC program for North America. So I work very closely with Erica on that. And then I also look after our Google Developer Expert program, which is a program that highlights experts out in the community that are proficient in Google technologies. And I also help with as the liaison for any Google Cloud initiatives that happen in North America between developers like yourselves, and helping make connections for opportunities for these developers. And I've been at Google for about 3 years now, and prior to that, I was a startup co-founder. And prior to that, I was a software engineer for a publishing company based out of Kansas City. I am actually based in California, but during COVID, I escaped to come back to Kansas City to be closer to family while we were able to work from home. And so that's why I'm here in Kansas City.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to meet everybody. Yes, so we can get started with our first question. I guess just a run through about like how this panel would go. The first half of this panel would just be kind of us asking general questions. And then I think in the later half, we can break off into breakout rooms. So everyone can ask more specific questions if they have some. So as one, the first question is, what's it like working at Google? Could you describe how your overall experience has been?
Yeah, I can start. It's been I love working at Google. I guess it's because I've been around for almost 15 years, so I know that's kind of rare these days. So I've enjoyed the experience. So I majored in psychology at university, and then joined Google right after. And what I loved was that I was able to move and travel across different teams and move to different countries. And so I started out in sales in San Francisco, and then there were other opportunities that I was able to apply to. And so, and they helped me move. So I was able to move to London, where I did sales operations for a few years. And then eventually I moved to Singapore, where I joined the developer relations team, which is still the same team I'm on now. And I focused on working with developers in Indonesia. And then I moved to New York. And so what I liked was that there were those opportunities, and that they encourage people to work on, or are open to people working on 20% projects and like rotation programs. And that's what got me into the role that I'm at now, which I feel like is a better fit than some of the other teams I've been on. So I worked on a 20% project for google.org, which I really enjoyed. I did a 20% project for there was like a startup tech hub in London, and I managed the mentoring program with startups. And so I'm like, okay, I like startups. I don't love my day-to-day job. And so that's when it helped me kind of explore things and realize that I'm better and more passionate about other things. And then I found a rotation program in Singapore. And so that's when I was like, whoa, I love this kind of work, working with developers and communities. And so I like that they just have the opportunities. And the second and last thing I would say is the people. I definitely love the people in the team. Kyle and Melissa are awesome, but also like our team it's a lot of like smart and creative and nice people who are good. A lot of people are good at collaboration and teamwork. And so I really like the people, and they're kind of like open to coming up with new ideas and working on projects together. And so I think the people is definitely something that's kind of kept me engaged, and wanting to stay. Maybe I'll hit the 20-year mark, which sounds crazy, but I'm 15 years for now.
Yeah, so I grew up in the Bay Area, really close to Google headquarters and Facebook headquarters. And I did not want to get into tech. I thought it was super boring. I thought I was just going to sit behind a computer all day. And I was like, I want to travel. I want to work with people. I want to do all that. So I had actually started my career in education. But when I got back to the Bay Area, my mom actually pushed me to check out Google. And my first job was working on the learning and development team and creating a product for Googlers to find learning opportunities. And it like completely changed my idea and perception of what tech was. And it was like, oh, I collaborate with people. I get to travel. I get to do all these really cool things that I had no idea tech was. So my experience at Google has been just that. I feel like I'm learning something new every day. Like Erica said, we work with really cool people. I've been able to see the world. Google has paid for me to go to Morocco, to Paris, to Dublin. And I think the cool thing about Google is that there's just so much to do. There's so many different products. There's so many different teams. So there's just a lot of flexibility in what you want to do. If you want to work on maps, you could go work on maps. If you want to work with communities, you could come work on developer ecosystem. If you want to work on machine learning, you could do that. So it's a really cool place for someone that wants to change things up every now and then and try new things. So yeah.
Big plus one to what Melissa and Erica were saying. This team is really great. We're not just blowing smoke. We do enjoy working with each other. I would say our team is very unique in that regard to most teams that you find at Google. Being, we work directly with the community like yourselves, and as Melissa was talking about the projects that we get to work on, it's a lot of stuff that we get to come up with and create. And so it's very fun to, be able to do that kind of stuff. And so I do have a computer science background. So I went, when I was coming out of university, like I wanted to become a software engineer, which is what I did. I hopped straight into the industry, and I did that for about 7.5 years. And that's when I got the startup itch, and co-founded a startup. And from my work, wanting to learn more from other developers, and the best way to learn is really to be in a community. And so that's where I tried to find other developers like myself. There wasn't really any groups that I've felt at home in, and so that's where I started a Google developer group in Kansas City, and that's where I got to bring together developers, find like-minded developers. And that's what helped me kick off my startup. Is I found my co-founder through my GDG. We kicked that off. The startup was going great. It's just we ran out of funds. And then good timing, there was this opening available at Google to continue working with the community, because it was something that I learned as a software engineer, that it was something I felt very passionate about sharing back with the community, learning from others, and being very passionate about that, to where I still get to hack on some code here and there, but it's not my day job. My day job is speaking at events, or helping to create fun new initiatives for the community to take part in. So that's very exciting for me at Google now.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. It's great to hear how Google has so many opportunities for you guys, and how like just the people make everything worthwhile. So yeah, our next question is, what made you decide to pursue the path that you're currently on, and how did you know it was the right fit for you?
I could start this one. So I don't think I ever made like a clear decision to follow this path. I think it was more so this is kind of where my career took me. Like I said, I was really passionate and still am very passionate about education and tech. And what I realized is that, tech is the way to democratize education. And there is a really powerful tool in leveraging tech to help democratize opportunities for people. So I had heard about women tech makers. I'd worked with women tech makers when I was on a marketing team, and just saw the really cool things that women tech makers was doing in terms of making sure that everyone had the opportunity to get into tech and had the opportunity to learn developer technologies, and being part of that mission really excited me. So when people ask how did you get to where you are, it was really just following what I was really interested in and following things that got me excited and made me excited to come to work every day. And that's what I continue to look for, is just like, where can I continue learning and where can I have a positive impact, however big or small that may be.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I actually, when I was in college, I went to Stanford, and so there was a job fair there, and there were different tech companies which are all close by in Silicon Valley, and they had booths at the job fair. So I was like, okay, I guess like Facebook, Google, they're close by. I want to live in San Francisco. So I didn't really think about it too much. I was interested in technology. So that was something. I took one computer science class and built a very simple website. I'm like, okay, I know I like technology, but I really just wanted a job, to be honest. And Google seemed cool. And I also considered marketing. I wanted to get into sports marketing. I played rugby in college. So I thought maybe I want to get into like marketing for a rugby team and move abroad. But so I kind of just, kind of put my hat in the ring and applied to a few different tech companies and joined Google. But I learned my path and what I was interested over time, because I learned throughout the time. I figured out, okay, what am I actually interested in? What am I good at? What am I passionate about? And I figured that out over time. And when I was in sales, I realized, okay, I love talking to people and like relationship building. That's a part of sales I like, but then I didn't really like anything else. And so I started to take on 20% projects to sort of figure out, okay, what do I like? And I worked on like a training program. And so I was really excited about other types of projects. And what I learned from that was, okay, I love project management. And then what I also learned is I love working on projects with people in different countries and interacting and traveling to other countries to lead trainings or just, interact with teammates. So that's the stuff I found out. And that's what led me to apply to a role in London as a project manager and leaving the US and going somewhere else for other experiences. So that's how I figured out that. And then I realized project management is great, but I didn't love the content of what I was working on and the actual projects themselves. So that's why I did other 20% programs. And I realized, okay, what I'm actually the best at is project management, but for projects I care about, that I feel like make an impact or at least connect me to other people and is related in some way to education. And so that's when I did that rotation in Singapore. It was focused on helping women start businesses online. And so I'm like, this is cool. And that's what led me to my role in Singapore on the same team I'm on now, developer relations. So, and that's when I'm like, okay, now I've kind of figured out this path. I like project management and in the education space and working with communities. And that's when I kind of the last part of the journey is learning that I love communities and being a part of communities. And actually at a community event, I met somebody who wanted to start a community for women in tech in Singapore. And I said, sure, I wanted to do that. And so we started a community called Geek Girl Meetup Singapore and ran events and for 3 years. So that was fun. And I realized, okay, I love all those things plus community. And I was able to kind of figure out a role, which is the one I'm in now, where I can, work on basically the best of the best things that I am passionate about, and that I feel like I can utilize my skills. So it took a while, but eventually I was able to kind of find the path, and I just really doubled down on like my strengths and also interests and passions. And what are 20% programs? So they allow for us, I see the question in the chat. So at Google, they allow for people to take 20% of their time to work on a project for another team, or it can be on the existing team actually. And so there's something they're very open to, and they see it as a way for you to, build up new skills, or just something to get you excited about like working on something on the side outside of your core job. And so they do it as a way to keep employees happy and engaged and creative. And so for me, it was a way to like really be, sorry, I suddenly got really I get excited about 20% projects. So as a way to just like figure out what I like working on, and what I want to do in the future. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Yeah, I have yet to work on a 20% project, just because everything kind of feels like a 120% project for me. So, but yeah, so kind of like I alluded to in the previous question, where what kind of led me to Google. I actually, but before this role was available, I had applied twice, I believe, because I still wanted to, as Erica was talking about, the passion for the community and stuff like that. But with my CS background, the role that seemed more fitting was a developer relations, so a developer advocate. And so I was initially applying for those, and I made it pretty far in the interview. And what's interesting about those roles is, you're a developer that's representing a product. And so like for Firebase, for example, Firebase is one of my favorite products that Google has. I'm very passionate about that one. And so with Firebase, as a developer advocate, you would go speak at conferences, talk to other developers about Firebase, the good, the bad, the ugly. And but you'd still get to write some code. You'd have some fun writing some test projects just to show off the different features. But the nice thing is it sounds very salesy, but it's not a sales job. Like you just have to try to reach developers, and but you still get to work with your hands in the code, stuff like that. And so that's where, initially that's where I was looking at, and that was my angle into Google, is where I was thinking I was going to go. But initially I never thought I would apply to Google. Like, Google was just a tool that I would use as a developer in my day job, wherever I was a developer at. And it wasn't until I learned of the developer advocate role that, hey, I might want to work at Google. And so through that process, I got to know more people at Google, and thusly became more involved in the community, the Google developer community. And that's when I learned, made some close ties to for the opportunity that I'm in now. And it's I still get to work with community, but the fun thing that in my mind, because I have that tech background, I'm not tied to one product. As all three of us, since we're on developer ecosystem, we represent all of Google, so all the different products. We have our community programs that are tied more closely to us, but anytime we're talking to developers out in the community, we have so I still get to talk about Firebase a lot. I'm also very passionate about the Google Assistant, so I still get to talk a lot about Google Assistant, and how you can write fun apps for the Google Assistant. So that's where made the role that I'm in very appealing to me, and so I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's great to hear that you don't really need to have a set path at first. You can just continue to explore as you go along. So that's great to hear. I guess go on that note, is there something you wish you had known before deciding to pursue your path?
I think network plays a big part in getting a job in tech and getting into the tech industry. So what you're doing right now as part of a developer student club, that's huge. Several of you are probably going to go to different tech companies, and when one of you wants to make a career move, you could just tap someone you're in this group with and be like, hey, are there any open roles? The majority of the people I know got their position because they knew someone who put out a call on Facebook or on LinkedIn, like Kyle. So yeah, I wish I knew that in college, of just like creating those networks, joining those groups. So you're already way ahead of where I was at your point. And yeah, just looking for those places, looking those internships, in your internship, making sure you're taking the time to have coffee chats with people at work. That's all super valuable stuff when you're starting your job search.
Big +1 on that. I would also add on public speaking. That was, depending on the role that you're wanting to get into, that was not something that I ever saw myself getting into. I went to school, like I said, computer science major. I figured I'd be typing gibberish all day long and with my headphones on. And, turns out, I stand in front of crowds of hundreds to thousands. I'm on, video chats for the past year with audiences all over the world. And, being a part of a community like this with DSC or the Google developer groups, the women tech maker groups, you find that sense of community and you want to share. And so that's what happened to me. And so I never thought I'd get it, so I never really paid attention much in the public speaking stuff, in college or high school, anything like that. And so I wish I'd retained more of that, but since I got into more of this stuff, I did do a lot more speaker training, and I've picked up a lot through being involved in the community. And so that's one thing I wish I would have known more about before I got into all of this, how much I'd be public speaking.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And I think taking advantage of networking more, I'd say at university and after, would have been great. I know I made friends through different things, but I was just kind of more focused on what I was doing. But I wish I would have networked a bit more or connected with people on like, hey, why don't we work on a project together? Why don't we build something together? Why don't we start something together? Or volunteering for communities, for example. So I wish I'd just taken opportunities to network and meet with more people, have more coffee chats with people. I don't think I did that enough. And even before getting into this career, yeah, it would have been cool to meet more people that were in these jobs sooner and getting those coffee chats or going to events, because I really had no idea about, I knew about, being a real estate agent. That was what my mom did. And my dad was in the tech space, so I knew a bit about it. But I didn't really have any other people in the tech space to look to and understand. I didn't even know what roles were out there. I didn't even think about program managers or what they do. And I found it over years at Google and asking around. That's when I started doing that networking. Having those coffee chats was when I got to Google, going to events with panels and hearing what people do. And so I think just taking advantage of more of those networking opportunities, and also getting involved in more communities like what you're doing. Like for me, my community was rugby. And so I was very embedded in that community and I loved it. But I wish I had kind of been part of other different tech communities, but also other types of communities to meet different people and learn more things and share ideas. But my communities were always sports. But I started joining tech communities later once I started working. But I feel like that would have helped me and opened up my possibilities for jobs. I'm grateful for what I have, but I think it just would have been better if I'd understood all the different opportunities. And I guess the last thing would be just not stressing as much. You know, for a while I was like, oh, I need to find like the perfect job, and I would just kind of stress about things. And it's like, at the end of the day, I wish I would have had a bit more fun and relaxed a bit more, because everything kind of works out. And I think if I just trusted myself and focused on my strengths and my passions and interests, and know that I bring something different to the table, and everyone has something different to bring to the table, just had more confidence in myself earlier and not doubted myself. I think that would have been great. I did have a couple managers in the past that I would say they weren't good managers, and they made me question if I was good at my job. And I'm like, because of them, that shaped the way I worked, and that shaped just, you know, how I performed actually. And then I got a great manager, and he's like, no, you're good at this. You can work on that, but you're good on this. Keep going. You're fine. And he gave me some confidence, and then I really was able to excel. So I think just not letting certain people dictate how I felt about myself and my confidence in myself, and just knowing that things will kind of work out, not being too stressed about it. So those are some things that would have helped me along the journey.
Thank you so much for the advice. Out of interest of time, I think I'm going to open breakout rooms, if that's okay with everybody. We have 3 rooms, and then I'll just open them, and feel free to ask any questions that you have. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. And then I'll bring everybody, oh, sorry. I'll bring everybody back towards like 6:50. So.
Cool.